I hated God. I was ready to give up. I wanted nothing to do with God because I thought this was the end of the road for me. I was done. And truly the only thing that saved me was Hey, Conscious Crew. We are back for another episode of the Conscious Creative Corner. I am your host, Sia, the Transparent Therapist. And today, y'all just get to spend time with me. It's been a minute since we've been together. I know we've had such amazing guests on the show and there's more to come. But I miss just talking one-on-one like this because I love y'all. Y'all know this. Today, we're going to talk about my trauma and my relationship, the relationship I had with God. Now, I don't want to make this episode too long because I know y'all got stuff to do. Y'all got food to cook, somewhere to get to. But I just want to jump right in and say that God has placed this on my heart for some time. I just have not talked about it because I've been feeling guarded, right? Real guarded. I didn't want to talk about it, but God was just like, are you not the transparent therapist? And I said, God, And so I had to get out my own way. I had to understand that this platform that he's given me is here to help someone else. And so I'm ready to get real naked with y'all. And as y'all know, what I say is like, you can get naked for everyone because everyone doesn't deserve your energy. But if you're listening this far, y'all deserve it. So February 2023, everything was amazing. I was getting in my bag. I had my business. I was expanding my business. I was getting employees. If y'all listen to episode 1, I told you guys about the grant that I received. And that grant was amazing for me. It helped propel my business so much. I want to say maybe March 12th to be exact. My whole world turned upside down. I could not walk, y'all. We're talking, I'm on the couch. I get up and I collapse. My husband is somewhere in the house. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? I thought my foot just got numb. I thought nothing of it. But when I got up or tried to get up again, I could not get up. I said, hold on, something is wrong. So I went. I called my husband. I was like, you got to come here. I cannot get up. My kids are looking at me like, Mommy, you okay? What's going on? I truly had no idea what was happening. And it was the scariest moment of my life. And yeah, I went through childbirth 3 times. And the amount of angst happening for me has not touched it. So I said, I didn't want to go to the hospital because if you know me, I do not like hospitals. It's not that I don't trust them. It's very uncomfortable. And the year prior, I was in the hospital for a minute right after giving birth. And I was like, this is not it. So I didn't want to go to the hospital. I was like, let me try to sleep it off. I managed to get into my bed. My husband helped. My kids were so scared. And we're going to talk about vicarious trauma in another episode and how it affects kids. But my kids were scared. And I didn't blame them. It's just like, what's wrong with Mommy now? I go to sleep next day, y'all. I'm thinking like, okay, cool, I'm going to get out of bed. I get out of bed and I collapse again. And I'm like, this can't be life. So at this point, I call my doctor and I'm just like, I can't walk. I don't know what's happening. This has never happened to me before. And just to let y'all know, guys, I'm vegan and now I'm pescatarian, but I was vegan for some time. Started to incorporate fish back in my diet. This was after this whole ordeal though. But my parents are dead set saying like, start eating some meat. This is why it's happening to you. You need to eat. And I'm like, I'm good. Like if anything, being vegan helps to reduce the inflammation in my body. So we get to the doctor. Doctor's doing like that reflex test. She hitting my knee. She was like, oh my gosh, you don't have any reflexes. And I said, huh? Because the thing is, I could feel my feet, but I had no control over my feet. And if y'all can just think about paralysis, okay? I don't know if you guys have ever experienced sleep paralysis. It's the feeling of you're awake, but you cannot move. Or for those of you who have gone through labor and delivery and they give you an injection and you're like, what's it called The thing that they inject in your back. Somebody in the comments put it below. It's so crazy because I cannot remember what it's called. But you know, like when you're laying there, you can feel, but you can't really feel. And you can't move before the baby's coming because they inject you so you can numb up. That's how I felt. And I was like, this is just crazy. So a series of tests for maybe months on end. My last series of tests happened in October of 2023. We went through the whole spectrum of MS. When they told me, yeah, you might have MS, I bawled for days. I am a dancer, y'all. I don't do it for a living now, but I dance. I walk around. I was a primary caregiver for my kids because my husband would travel a lot. I was just thinking like, yo, this can't be life. You're telling me I can't move. I can't walk. I can't walk unassisted. I need somebody else there to help me. Sia is independent. That's what kept going in my head. Sia is independent. Sia don't need nobody. I got me. But I was stripped from walking. I was stripped from moving on my own. And that stripping made me have to become dependent on others. And to this day, people will tell me like, you don't ever ask for help and you need help. And I'm just like, I know, but that's a pride thing. And it strips you when you're so prideful to the point where it's just like you want to try to make it work when you know there's an easier way, but your pride is getting in the way. And I'm still working on that. I'm working through my pride. But this situation, not being able to walk, made me have to depend on others. It hurt me because I started to think about all the wonderful things that was happening in my life. And I'm just like, God, why? Why? And people tell me all the time, you know, Felicia, you're so... you're just there. You show up. People never know when nothing's wrong with you because I don't wear my heart on my sleeve. I am so good at putting on a facade. Like the world, my house could be burning down and nobody would know. And I think what was happening was God was just like, I need to show you what's happening. I need to show you that I'm in control. Okay. So that's October. Now here's the juicy part, y'all. And I know some of y'all who's going to watch this, y'all going to be so mad. But I'm telling you right now, God has placed this on my heart for a reason. And everything I've been going through is for the betterment of somebody out there listening. Yes, I was mad, but there's a scripture that says, count it all as joy. Because during that time, I was thinking the enemy was taking me out. But no, y'all. Let me tell you, God was making the enemy my footstool. He was making the enemy my footstool, and I just didn't know it yet. I was so caught up in what I wanted to do for myself that I couldn't figure out what was going on. So it's November 2023. That's around the time of the holidays. My daughter... And mind you, all this time, I'm going through episodes where I couldn't walk for a little bit. So I couldn't walk for like 2 weeks. Then the next week, I'm good. And let me tell you, so when in March, when it first happened, it was a week before one of my best friend's birthday. And I was like, I got to fly out to Georgia to surprise her. When this thing happened, my whole life turned upside down. And the only thing I was worried about was not being able to hop on that plane. Outside of like not taking care of my kids, but I was thinking about the things that I committed to already. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to go and surprise her. Meanwhile, she wouldn't have known because I had already told her I wasn't coming. But I made a commitment. I was like, I need to get on this plane some way, somehow. Luckily, the stint only lasted for 2 weeks. And that was the longest period it's ever lasted. So I was able to hop on a plane. I had a cane and everything with me just in case. Okay. Following month, I was in Puerto Rico. And then I also went to the Bahamas the month after that. And so all this time I'm thinking like, all right, because I was good, y'all. I was good. I still had some bouts of like not being able to walk for maybe a day or two, but never so long that I wouldn't be able to do anything. So I was okay. I thought I was okay until periods would come where I couldn't do it anymore. So November, I remember distinctly, it was probably the week of November 12th again, because my daughter had her birthday. That whole week I could not walk. I had a cane, and that was the first time people saw me in public with a cane and was just like, yo, are you okay? What happened? Did you get in a car accident? I was just like, no, still being very coy about it. I'm like, I'm not going to tell them what happened because I don't need nobody's pity. And that's one of the problems is when you don't speak up, people are just going to take things at face value. Meanwhile, I literally needed help. I truly needed help. And more so, not because of my family, but I needed help mentally. Knowing that, yo, I got this stuff going on. So anyway, I prolonged the juicy stuff. Let me keep going. November happens. my daughter's birthday. We take her to Chuck E. Cheese. She has a great time. I'm not limping. I'm on not the crutches, but it kind of the cane. I'm doing all of that stuff. I get back the next day, and Lord, this is hard for me to say, which is probably why I'm prolonging it. But I get back the next day, and I get a letter. And the letter is just like, you ain't gonna have no house no more. I said, huh? What do you mean? So, y'all, let me just take a break to say, if you're still listening and you are in my inner circle, I'm sorry for not sharing this with y'all. Maybe two of y'all know, but that's it. If you're part of my family, I'm sorry for not sharing this with y'all because it was embarrassing. And it is embarrassing. But when I say God works in mysterious ways, I could do a whole sermon right now, but I mean it because though it was probably the most embarrassing part, it helped me understand that my communication in my marriage was not right. All right. So I don't know how I forgot to mention this, but in October, I also had another traumatic thing happen to our family. No one passed away, but my husband did lose his job, a job that he was at for 5 years. And it was devastating for us because before October, before we knew our home was going into foreclosure, it's like, wait, we now have to deal with my health condition, our home going to foreclosure, and then you also not having a job. So it's a family of 5 with 1 income. And y'all, my business is good, but it ain't that good. Not yet, because God is still working in it. But it was a lot for us. It was a lot for my family. It was a lot for me. And this is why my faith constantly kept getting tested. So I just wanted to pop in and say that I am a marriage and family therapist. But I try not to bring that into my home. I really do. I try not to therapize my husband, my kids. I don't do it. But this let me know that something was not right in my marriage. So I'm not going to get into details, but my house is in foreclosure. Everybody wants to hear about the pretty stuff, the nice stuff. Everyone wants to hear about all of that. But yo, life is for real, okay? And I could not understand what was happening in my life at this point. I could not. And I'm not going to get into too many details because we still working through things, okay? Like my family as a whole, we're still working through things. But that letter it jabbed a hole in me even further. And at this point, I was just like, God, are you there? Are you seeing what's happening in my life right now? Like, what is going on? I have 3 kids. I need somewhere to live. What do you mean? Now, I'm not putting my husband under the bus. I'm really not. And I promise you I'm not. But my husband has his own traumas that he has to work through. And he's not gambling. He's not addicted. He's not into any of that stuff. So I don't want y'all out here twisting my words. He's not doing none of that stuff. But what happened was there was some kind of break in our relational communication where his responsibilities were not taken care of. And I was under the impression that it was. When I say I saw that letter and I could have killed him, I kill him. Okay. When I saw it, I think the first thing that came to me was anger. I was angry with God and I was angry with him because I'm just like, how could you not be transparent and say like, yo, I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Now, let me tell you how God works. Okay. We're going to fast forward to maybe January where we're trying all these things to keep our house. And they're like, no, I spoke to some kind of foreclosure coach and he's like, oh, do this, this, and this. It's going to cost me $4,000 to work with him. And I'm thinking like, why would I pay you $4,000 when I could put that $4,000 towards the mortgage? The thing is, guys, I'm not on the mortgage because when we got this house, I actually was not working. And so our lender said, hey, this is actually going to look very poorly on you because I was having my kids back to back. So I was out of work. And again, at that time, I did not have any employees. I was out of work. I was just doing like side things. Like I had my business, but my business wasn't running like full time the way it was running now. So my income, she said, it would have looked poorly because I still had my student loans back then too. And she was like, no, the debt to income is not going to work. So she was like, oh, just put yourself on a mortgage. I said, fine, he could be on a mortgage. So when the lenders come and they're like, your house is in, dot, dot, dot. I'm like, okay, well, what about my income? And they're like, we can't use it. You're not on the mortgage. And so because of the length of time that had passed since it wasn't paid, they wanted everything up front. And we talking 20 G's. And I said, hold on. I don't got 20 G's. I'm putting 3 kids in daycare and through school and paying. That's not going to happen. I don't have that. Right. And so this is when I did what I thought I would never do. And I reached out to my in-laws. And I would say I would never do it because I feel like that was my husband's responsibility to reach out. But he was still keeping his mouth closed. And I was like, you got 3 kids up here. We need to tell somebody. So I go ahead. I reach out to my in-laws. They're trying to do everything they can. God bless them. But still, it's not enough. And we're now in the end of January. And we have a court date. And when I say I've never been so humbled in my life, I don't remember what I was doing one day, but I said, God, just let your will be done. If this is your will for us to not live in the home anymore, to not live in our house that we worked so hard to get, then let it be done. Because whatever your will is, I know that it's supposed to be greater. And you never have your children, we're never forsaken, right? He hears our cries. And so when I was crying out to him, I let it go. When I said I felt like water and mud, did I just come off? I mean, that's what I felt. I felt like everything was just shedding. Like it felt so freeing. And he provided. Okay. So let's say the court day was January 30th, because I can't remember exactly. Something in my spirit said, I need you to call the mortgage office. And I said, what's the point? And then it said, I need you to call the mortgage office or the lender's office. And I said, fine. So I call and I'm like, hey, this and this and this is happening. And they were like, yeah, well, you don't really qualify like for this COVID relief, but let me just talk to you. Mind you, I never spoke to anybody before. And she was just like, well, listen, we can't really get into your file because the mortgage, like the lenders, we're going through some kind of cyber attack. However, what you can do is write this letter and tell them that since March, you've been going through such and such and such things happening in your life. And your husband has been helping you through it, which he has. And I said, okay, let me do it. It can't hurt. So I submit the letter. And when I submit the letter, at this point, y'all, I had already decided like, yo, what it's going to be is what's going to be. I even have my prayer board behind me. And I remember writing on the New Year's, like my prayer was, God, just have your way. Just make sure my family is good, whatever good looks like. So when I write this letter, I'm like, look, I'm not on the mortgage, but I can reside here. And if I do reside here at the house, at that house, the house that was going to be in foreclosure, this is how much I could be bringing in. I understand I'm not on a mortgage, but this is how much I can commit to. And so the lady was so helpful. She was like, just send it and we'll see what happens. And so I send in the letter. Again, mind you, if the court date is on January 30th, it's now maybe January 25th. And I'm like, I'm telling my best friend, I'm just like, listen, I might need you to come over here and come pack up these things because we got a big house. We had a big house that we had to pack up for. And she's like, yeah, I got you. Kind of tell my parents, like, listen, don't get no more things for the kids because if we got to pack up, I don't want to deal with all this because we had already moved with 3 kids at that time. And to move again with 3 kids, I knew was a lot. So I didn't want an excess of stuff. And so they're like, okay, fine, I got you. So want to say now, either March 25th or January 25th or January 28th comes around. And I call again and I'm like, hey, I just want to know the status of this, this, and this. Because at this time, my husband is still not, he's going through some things. So he ain't calling nobody. And I'm like, I got 3 kids over here. I need to make sure we straight. So I'm calling and they were like, yeah, we're still under cyber attack. And I'm like, so y'all still collecting people's payments, but you can't tell people about their accounts? Mind you, they wasn't collecting my payment or our payment, but they was collecting people's payments. But that's another story because these cyber bullies, attacks, whatever, is crazy. So now it's a day before the hearing. And my husband goes to the mailbox and he gets a letter from the mortgage lender. And I'm like, what is this? Because I'm just like, it wasn't like the first letter where they send somebody out to you. I forget what the name of it is. Like, they're not an officer, but it's somebody that you have to physically be there. And they send you a letter to say, hey, this is foreclosure, the day in which we were out. So I never met that person, but they put it on the door or whatever. So I'm thinking like, oh, the letter's different. So I'm just like, before I open the letter, I said, God, let your will be done, because it is what it is. I open the letter and it says, congratulations, you've been accepted for the COVID relief plan. And I said, what? Because if y'all remember in my story, the lady specifically said, you're not eligible for the COVID relief plan. We can't do nothing. And this is the first lady that didn't take the time out to speak to me. And I was like, okay. And that's why I didn't want to call back, because I'm like, this is just pointless. Like, what am I fighting for? So when I read it, I was like, what is this? Y'all, that plan stated that we didn't have to pay that stack, that 20 G's, because it's not even a stack, because a stack I could have did. That 20 G's, they said we didn't have to pay that 20 G's. What we needed to pay was nothing until March 1st. When I said hallelujah, I can remember the day. I said to my husband, I remember like kind of punching him in his shoulder. I was like, you need to go start thanking God, because I was still a little agitated, but I definitely still let it go, because I'm just like, ain't nobody else but God, because there was no way that we were going to get 20 G's. I remember speaking to my attorney. So I have a business attorney. And I didn't want to have to pay for another attorney, like you should, like a real estate attorney, which my accountant gave me. But I'm like, before I work with her and put a retainer down, let me see if my business attorney knows anything. And he was just like, yeah, honestly, there's really not much you can do. You can try to apply and take these steps. You know, if that doesn't work, then you can try it. Like, he was saying a lot of jargon I wasn't familiar with. But when I say scary, scary. Okay. And so when I saw the letter, I was so happy. I told my husband that he really, really, really needs to thank God, because it wasn't nobody else but the Lord that brought us through that. And you can't tell me God is not real. All that to say, my trauma lived in my body. And anyone who's gone through anything traumatic, I believe the whole trauma with me not being able to walk, and essentially like falling because I can't walk. My legs weren't working. And by the way, it's still a TBD with that. So now the world knows, hi, hello. Yes, I don't know what's wrong with me, but God is good with me. Okay. That's still going on. My trauma with the broken communication, which you might go through in life in your partnership, and that's okay. Right. The trauma with not understanding where my family was going to live, because I'm thinking, hey, we got to live somewhere. So what we going to do? Thinking all of that, not understanding what was going to happen. Those things are traumatic. Trauma lives in your body. Okay. When those things happen, it pulls you away from your normal psyche. Okay. Constantly triggered, back to back. Okay. Even if it's not my situation, maybe it's just like, oh man, I just lost a family member. Oh man, I just lost my job. Yo, me and my friend just broke up as in we're not friends anymore. Right. Oh man, I got this bill due and I can't face it, or my lights are shut off. And I know some of y'all have been through that. Those things can be counted as trauma because it's unnatural stress on the body, right? It's different. Like if you had hit your foot on something, that is a stress, but it's not necessarily unnatural. These stresses that push weight down into your cognitive systems, that looks different, and it affects us, and it affects our relationships. My relationship with God was so affected because the trauma that was happening in me, the stress I was feeling and experiencing in me, made me not want to even attach to God. And this is me being 100% real. And made me want to turn away from God. It made me feel like, yo, God, who's that? And I talk to God like this on a regular, okay? I'm a little ghetto, maybe hood. I'm not know. But I talk to God so real. And I'm just like, yo, you can't be friends if you putting me through this. But what I do understand is sometimes I forget the Bible, and I understand that people are tested. How dare I be so mad with God when Job done lost his donkey, him family, him house, he lost his rocks, he lost everything, but yet he stayed so faithful to God. And me, who I didn't even lose my feet. I have my feet still, I have my legs. I can walk right now. I can dance right now. I did not lose that. And yet I'm still here being mad with God. Now, we can't discount our emotions because that's okay. God treats us as a friend. He calls me friend. So it's okay with me being mad. But for me to be almost to the point where I'm like, yo, forget him. That's nuts and wild to me, because Job, the man over here who lost his whole family, was still standing faithful, and I couldn't even take a little jab. Nuts. So when we have trauma, and I feel like if I had found a therapist for myself sooner, I probably wouldn't have gone through a lot of that turmoil, right? Because I can laugh about it, I can joke about it. I was actually joking about it back then because I'm just a very jokey person. But if I found a therapist sooner, I probably wouldn't have had that disattachment to God. I probably wouldn't have had that disattachment to my husband. I would have been okay. I would have been like, all right, yo, what should we do? Mind you, I still feel like I took it as best as I could, and he took as best as he could too. Like, he didn't treat me no differently, because there was probably a point I really yelled at him, but that was once. But I did say, I started to put myself in his shoes, and I really thought back to March of 2023, and I'm like, what were we doing back then? Why couldn't you be present? And he kind of started to open up and tell me all the things that was going on in his life. And because he traveled a lot, those lines of communications weren't open as much as it should have been. And so I gave him grace, right? Even though the trauma in my body was moving. And I want y'all to be very aware of what I'm trying to say. Not the pain trauma, but the emotional trauma of knowing like, yo, I feel like you weren't being loyal to me because you weren't opening up in communication with me. Disloyalty is not only cheating, we can have emotional disloyalty if we emotionally disconnect, just like how I was emotionally disconnecting from God. And it wasn't until that December, January, where I said, Lord, have your way. When I was doing my prayer board, I said, Lord, have your way, because I cannot be in control all the time. You are in control. And just even sharing this story is very freeing, right? Because I had to count all of that as joy. And I'm saying I count it all as joy because now my husband and I make it a point to be very communicative when we don't like something. I mean, he's still working on him. And for those of y'all listening who know him, y'all know him. But it takes time. Me as a therapist, I can honestly say that I have a secure attachment, and I know when somebody doesn't want to be pressed. But I am also human, so I'm gonna blow up at times. So for me, I have a secure. I developed this hasn't happened naturally, and we'll get into that in another episode. Because if y'all Caribbean, y'all know we don't. Mm-mm. Most parents don't securely attach. But I had to grow in learning how to be securely attached. So when he needs his space, he needs his space. He is more of the avoidant attachment where he doesn't want to talk about the problem, which is what buck us into the problem in March of last year. He doesn't want to talk about the problem, but honestly, that's okay, because he's learning how to be a little bit more secure in his attachment and open up and understand, like, hey, if I want my wife to be happy, if I need my family to be happy, I need to learn how to not fear rejection so much where I leave off the connection. And again, I'm going to say this for those who are insecurely attached, or have these have these avoidant attachments. Just because you don't want to talk about a problem, it doesn't make a problem disappear, right? It might cause you less pain because interacting with the problem isn't there, but it doesn't make a problem disappear. So we are actively working on that as a couple. I'm actively making it my duty to help him through it and offering him grace, because not everyone is a therapist. Not everyone understands attachment. Not everyone understands how trauma affects relationships. But I made it my duty to understand how my trauma affected our relationship. And now he's working on his portion, how his trauma reflects or affects our relationship as well. I honestly feel like this is here to help someone. Like I said, some of y'all going to listen to this and you're not going to like it, but it's okay if you don't like it, because I'm being obedient to God, because I didn't like sharing this either. And I'm being 100%, but somebody in the conscious creative corner today has listened to this and said, wow, I can learn from this. I can grow from this. And I think that's okay. And that's 100% okay. And before you click off this video, there's a video right here. You see it. I see it. Go watch it. And if you watched it already, go share it with a friend, because there's always nuggets of gems in my episodes. All right. For my audio listeners, this episode, go share it with a friend, because I know somebody else is worried about not being like Job, and I'm desiring to be like Job. Okay. I love y'all so much. I really do. Thank you for sharing this corner with me. All right. Make sure you guys walk good, keep the vibe high, and I will see y'all next time.